kind of a bit of a shocker in some respects, I'd say. Kimi Raikkonen, widely rumored to return. He is returning for 2021. That guy will never leave the sport. He's just awesome. But his teammate, Antonio Giovinazzi, will also return to Alfa Romeo next season. There was definitely speculation on someone like Mick Schumacher or Callum Ilott taking that spot from Giovinazzi for next season, and that just leaves one Ferrari-powered team for next season open with a spot for one of the Ferrari Junior Academy drivers, including the likes of Schumacher and Ilott, to take that spot. It's definitely an interesting kind of decision here by Alfa Romeo. I like Giovinazzi. He hasn't really maybe panned out as well as we would have anticipated when he had that one off season, and the past 2 seasons have been hit or miss. He's just been kind of second to Raikkonen. But I think he deserves a shot still in F1, but next season will be his final straw if he doesn't get sacked, maybe mid-season next season, if he doesn't get the results. But definitely an interesting decision here for just Ferrari as an entire manufacturer to make this decision, because they ultimately have the say, as we've talked about on this show, with Alfa Romeo having that one Ferrari Junior Academy seat there, specifically for one of their drivers, and Giovinazzi currently holds it. We didn't know if they were going to decide to switch things up for next season, but they ultimately decide that Alfa Romeo's pairing of Raikkonen and Giovinazzi are good enough for 2021, Kyle.
Yeah, and this is one that really surprised me, to be quite frank. I really thought that Mick Schumacher was going to be paired with Kimi Raikkonen next year at, obviously, Alfa Romeo. I think Raikkonen was one that most of us felt pretty safe about. If Raikkonen wanted to return, he would return. He's just a great teammate to have for anybody coming into that second seat. Just the amount of experience he has is just unmatched. Obviously, he's the most experienced driver in F1 history, so you can't do much better than that. But the Giovinazzi one does surprise me quite a bit when you just look at the pipeline of drivers that Ferrari has right now at the F2 level. There's a lot of names there and not a lot of seats to put them in at the F1 level, and whether that's Mick Schumacher, Callum Ilott, Robert Schwartzman, there's a handful of drivers there that could or are F1 caliber drivers as soon as next year. And I thought that one of them would at least end up in that Ferrari Junior seat at Alfa Romeo, which, it's a decision. I don't know if I necessarily agree with it. But that being said, I do think that Antonio Giovinazzi is a solid driver. We've seen what he's been able to do off the starts and on the first laps. He's been remarkable on those. But if you look at the long-term future, do you really see a future for Giovinazzi at the highest being Ferrari? I think that basically everybody at this point would say no. So if you look at the pipeline here, what's more valuable, having one more season of Giovinazzi at Alfa Romeo, or getting Schumacher, Ilott, Schwartzman, whatever you decide to go with, at Alfa Romeo? For me personally, I think it's more valuable to have one of Schumacher and Ilott, one at Alfa Romeo, and one at Haas if you can do it. And only having one of those go into F1 next year is probably disappointing to me. And I think that both of them are definitely ready to make that next step. So when I look at one of those Ferrari Junior seats being taken by Giovinazzi, I just kind of scratch my head and wonder what the thought process is there. And obviously remains to be seen who ends up where. It seems almost certain now that Mick Schumacher will end up at Haas. But then what happens with Ilott? What happens with Schwartzman? We'll see what happens with those guys. But I'm definitely surprised by that decision.
Yeah, I would agree. If they were going to do something, I wouldn't have been surprised if they put Mick in Giovinazzi's seat and then Gio went to Haas for next season. I think that would have made some sense as well.
Even something like that would make sense. Because I feel like Haas does have the 2 open seats. So if he did something where Schumacher pairs with Raikkonen and gets that experience at Alfa Romeo, Giovinazzi switches over to Haas and then pairs with somebody, it seems likely that'll be Mazepin. So even then, I just don't get it.
I think part of it maybe came down to the Italian driver and the Italian car, and
that's probably an underrated aspect.
I think that's a great tie with that kind of brand that they built over there. Adds probably a lot of marketing dollars to have an Italian F1 driver driving an Italian powered car. That can't probably be understated enough. But Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised in some respects, but at the same time, I am. I hope Schumacher is at least in Formula One next season, because it would be great to see a Schumacher on the F1 grid. And if it isn't Haas, that's great news for an American team having a name such as Schumacher in their stable, driving their car. Whether that's a great season to be on the horizon for that team is yet to be seen. But I think he probably would have learned, Schumacher that is, more at Alfa Romeo than he will at Haas when they're kind of in a rebuilding or retooling phase, or whatever you want to describe it as. I think Alfa Romeo probably would have been more well suited for him to kind of be his first step into Formula One. But if they feel like this is the best for Schumacher's development, or Isla, let's not forget about him as well, they could go that route. But I think either or, you can't go wrong with the talent that they both have. So it's definitely a bit of a head scratcher in some cases, like you said, and in some others it makes sense in terms of maybe that ethnicity that Giovinazzi brings to that team. So it leaves a lot to be kind of desired to kind of find out for the remainder of silly season over there in F1. Spots are starting to wind down, starting to get more full as the days go on. Interesting from Lewis Hamilton after the race this past weekend as well. He doesn't know if he's going to be back next season. I don't know if that necessarily means like his tires are going off, how he says it over the radio every time, but he miraculously finds a way to come back and win the race. But there's definitely maybe a bit of opportunity there at the Mercedes seat for next season. Who knows? Sorry. Okay. I'm just saying, if Lewis does retire,
he's not. No, we're not entertaining this. We're not entertaining this.
I don't want it to happen. I don't want it to happen. Okay.
We're not entertaining it.
I will move on. So, any final thoughts on the Giovinazzi and Raikkonen side of things, Kyle? Because I clearly can't talk about that other thing.
No, I'm not. Mention. No, I will not allow. No, that we're not doing that. No.
I don't want it to happen either. Okay.
No. We will not speak of that until the day it is confirmed. That's all I will say.
What is confirmed?
The thing.
Okay.
I'm not saying it.
I'm going to see if you catch it there.
You tried.
I tried.
But yeah, no. Look, I like Gio as a driver. I think that he fits really well at Alfa Romeo. But given that kind of dynamic of the team where it's one driver that they get to choose and then one Ferrari junior, I just don't get why Ferrari, as the people making the decision, would keep Giovinazzi there instead of one of their junior drivers. If it's Alfa Romeo making the decision, I think, yeah, you probably stick with Raikkonen and Gio, because that's probably the lineup that gets you the best results next year. You don't have to worry about a driver coming in a rookie season and trying to learn things. So maybe Alfa Romeo has more say in that second seat than we maybe anticipated. I don't know. Maybe Ferrari has something hidden up their sleeve for some of their junior drivers, and we'll see what happens there. But at least for now, just given what we know and what's been speculated, weird decision.
Yeah, that's probably a good way to end it. We'll see what Haas does for their driver lineup. Obviously, Nikita Mazepin has been widely rumored as that kind of first guy that's in there. They seem to favor him a lot, which is an interesting decision when you look at some names that are out there. But as Kyle just motioned there with the money gesture, it makes a lot of sense in that regard. So